Oh, it's me. Hey, house guests. Welcome to today's Big Brother 23 updates and spoilers. Hope you're all having a great Wednesday so far. I know everybody was really thirsty for a mom update today, but sorry, change of plans. You're stuck with me. So thank you all so much for being here. Our house guests of the day are Stara Pioche. Piach? I'm so sorry for saying your name wrong. I said your first name wrong, and now I know how to say that, and now I don't know how to say your last name. But thank you. And Julie Kyle, thank you both for the support. We could not do this without you, and we appreciate it so, so much. So thank you again. And if you guys want to be house guests today, there's only a few weeks left for me to mispronounce your name. So consider joining our Patreon page. But seriously, guys, thank you. And I also want to wish a happy belated birthday to Maria. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad that you enjoy our videos. So thank you again. Yeah, and I also want to thank, I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards. I also want to thank all of our super chatters from yesterday because you guys are awesome. And that's a great way to support this channel and keep us doing what we're doing. So Jefferson Tucker, Sean, Stara, and Sean again, thank you so much for the support. And the fun thing is that Bowie and Lucy get to be here for the whole live stream. And right now, Bowie is licking my slipper. So that's fun. All right, let's get started. When we left off yesterday, Tiffany and Hannah were up on the block. Kylan did not use the power of veto, and Tiffany is the target. And there really hasn't been any back and forth about that because Big D and Xavier are dead set on voting her out. And it only takes 2 votes at this point to get rid of somebody. So Azah seems interested in keeping Tiffany, but whenever she brings it up, Big D just shuts it down. That's so sad. Yeah, so Azah also seems concerned that Big D wants them to use each other as pawns next week to take out Hannah. He's saying, Azah, if you win, you got to put up me and Hannah. If I win, I'm going to put up you and Hannah. So Azah is on board with targeting Hannah, which is extremely disappointing, but she feels like the pawn thing is unnecessary. She's like, why would we put each other at risk if we don't have to? Why wouldn't we just put up like Kyland, you know? Is she finally waking up? Hello, you are not Big D's number 1. That should be abundantly clear right now, but seems like Azah is just not getting that. So Tiffany and Hannah were both campaigning yesterday, but it hasn't really changed the vote. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of all that. But Big D and Xavier were chatting in the HOH room yesterday afternoon, and of course Xavier's pacing around. He's really getting his steps in the last few weeks. They're comparing notes on Tiffany and Hannah's campaigns. They know that Tiffany is telling everyone that she's going to owe them her life in the game if she stays. So they're like, she's saying that to everyone. We can't believe that. Also, Big D says that Tiffany and Hannah are really trying to mind F him right now because they're telling him that he's going to lose to Kyland and Xavier in the final 2. I mean, they're just telling you the truth, man. They're being honest with you, but Big D does not want to accept that. He's like really delusional. Big D says, I'm just trying to get the 3 guys to the end. So Big D also says that Azah has been wearing him out. She told Big D, I feel like you're ignoring me. And Big D goes on to explain that he is able to spend more time with Kylan now since they don't have to hide how close they are from everyone not in the cookout. Oh my God, he really does think that he's in a showmance with Kylan. So he's not just delusional about the game, he's also delusional about this situation with Kylan. But Big D is annoyed that Azah doesn't want to go up as a pawn next week. And he says, I have a deal with Xavier, I have a deal with Kylan, but I don't have a deal with Azah or Hannah. Why would I not put up somebody who hasn't already been up? You know, they don't want Azah to be able to say that she was never nominated. But then again, they don't intend for her to even make it to the final 2 anyway, to make that argument. But Big D says Azah doesn't know that the guys are working together. Yeah. Okay. So they talk about how Azah is always saying that she played an honest game, and they feel like she was only able to do that because Big D, Xavier, and Kyland did all the manipulating and all the lying to get the cookout this far. Oh, it was only you three? You three, that specific three, did all the work? No. The sad thing is, once Tiffany's gone, they are just going to take credit for everything. I mean, they're already trying to take credit for the strategy that Tiffany came up with to get the cookout to the final six. And she hasn't even left yet. But once she's gone, forget it. They're going to take ownership over every move this season. So they reaffirm that Tiffany needs to go this week because she would put up 2 guys if she won HOH, and they can't have that. Xavier believes that Hannah would put up Azah and Kyland, and Azah would be her target. No. Hannah definitely has Xavier fooled right now because Hannah told us that Azah and Kyland would be in her ideal final 3. But Xavier says we should be okay if Hannah wins because she would send out Azah. We just got to make sure in that situation that Azah would not win the power of veto. So they also agree that Azah is way more likely to work with Tiffany than Hannah would be. Than Hannah. Azah's more likely to work with Tiffany than work with Hannah. And they don't want the girls to work together and target them. They said the goal is to take all the girls out. So they want to keep Hannah around to not work with Azah. Boo. Okay, so at one point in this conversation, Big D is talking about his chances to win. He thinks that he has a chance against Xavier or Kyland in the final 2 because they've all played similar games. What? What are you talking about? But he says me next to Hannah. Hannah has played a way different game than I have. I guess I could sit next to Hannah. I love her, but she's female. I feel like the females are going to vote more towards her, unfortunately. Wow. I'm sorry, but Big D sucks. He really does. I got to say, too, for anybody who doesn't already know this, using female as an adjective, okay. Using female as a noun is really gross. But Xavier calls Big D out, and he's saying, you got to stop saying that a woman in the final 2 would automatically get all of the jury votes from the women. You got to stop saying it. So he calls him out about it. And just to give you guys a little bit of context, Hannah had just had a conversation with Xavier and told him how insulting it is that Big D is always assuming that the women would automatically vote for each other to win. So Big D says, how can I say that in a way that's not, and he doesn't finish that sentence, but I think the word that he's looking for is misogynistic. So Xavier's like, oh, well, you can say that based off of Hannah's relationships in the jury, you think she'd get more votes than you. So he also says, by bringing up that it's a predominantly female jury, you're making it seem like women can't think on their own. And I know that's not how you feel. I think it is. But he says it can come off like that. And Big D says, oh, no, I meant it in like a girl power way, women's rights and things like that. I can't. And Xavier clarifies. He's like, no, you're making it seem like the women would vote for another woman just because she's a woman and not based on her gameplay. And Xavier says that is belittling the women as game players, and they all do deserve more respect than that. And this all sounds great coming from Xavier, but the thing is, he's just parroting exactly what Hannah just told him not long before. And hopefully he is listening to this, and that conversation with Hannah was a wake-up call, and he's realizing, like, whoa, we've been saying some really crappy stuff about the women, and we've been treating them like crap here. Hopefully this is not just for show, but it certainly feels like it. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty clear that the guys are all terrified to go to the end with a woman, no matter how they want to word it. Okay, so Big D says, I'm going to try and clean it up. I don't want to come off as like belittling women. All right, so meanwhile, Tiffany's talking to the cameras in the sea glass bedroom, and she says Xavier has great potential to win this game. She also says, I'm not mad at it at all. She says, if he keeps me in this game, I'd like to go to the end with him. She says, earlier this week, I was hoping that I could get Kylan to keep me, but he nominated me, he didn't use the veto on me, and then he didn't accept my offer for a deal. So I don't owe him anything at this point. And she says, if I can get the votes myself to stay, I don't owe him anything moving forward, which is true. And the sad thing is Tiffany still thinks she has a chance to stay. Okay, so then the house guests took a break for a little while from not doing much to play Cops and Robbers, which is like a hide and seek game. So they were having fun with that. And then later, Big D and Azah were chatting in the have not room. And Azah's asking, do you have a deal with Hannah? And Big D is like, no, where did you get that from? He says, I don't have an effing deal with Hannah. He got like super defensive about it. He says, I'm trying to get her the F out of here, meaning next week, not this week. So Azah's like, well, do you have a deal with Hannah for next week? And she's asking about this because Tiffany told Azah that Hannah and Big D have a deal. And Big D says, no, I told her this week that I wouldn't vote her out. She did try to make a deal with me, and I told her that I couldn't do it because there just aren't that many people left. I wouldn't have anybody to put up on block. So he says, I made a deal with Kylan. I made a deal with Xavier. And obviously, me and you have an understanding. And that's why I can't go after those two boys. And he says, I'm hoping they will go after each other. That is a lie. Big D is freaking loyal to Xavier and Kylan, but he wants to make it seem to Hannah and Azah like he wants Xavier and Kylan to go after each other. Wake up, Azah. He just told you straight up he has a deal with Xavier and Kylan, but not with you. So Big D basically says Hannah's very lucky that Tiffany has to go first, because if not, she'd be going this week. So Azah's wondering again, is voting Tiffany out the right move? Not for Azah. She says, I know at the end of the day we have to vote Tiffany out, but Hannah's tricky. And with Tiffany, at least we know what we're dealing with, right? And Azah says, maybe Hannah is just more of a threat to me because you're covered on all angles. And Big D's like, no, you are too. That's a lie. He is setting Azah up for fourth place. Yikes. So Big D is squashing all of this. He's saying Tiffany has to go first because him and Xavier do not feel comfortable with her. And then Hannah can go next week. Azah, wake up. Wake up. Okay. So then later, Hannah talks to the cameras in the HOH room and she says, if I don't win this game, I want Xavier to win. Damn, everybody's saying that now. She says he meets all of my criteria for what I want in a winner. Honestly, though, I feel like if I had to choose between Kylan and Xavier, I would think that Kylan deserves to win more because, like, what has Xavier actually done in this game? I feel like at least Kylan has done some maneuvering and everything. I don't know. That's just me. But anyway, Hannah says, just because I would like to see Xavier win if I don't, that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to cut him if I need to. And she says, I've realized that Kylan and Xavier cannot both stay in this game. Of course. You got to break them up. Of course. She says she wants to get rid of one of them if she wins HOH, but she says that she has no preference. Really? Wouldn't you want to take out the guy that everybody's saying is going to win if he makes it to the end? But she thinks that the best move to split up Kylan and Xavier would be to have one of them not on the block. She thinks she should put up Kylan or Xavier against Big D, and then Azah would vote to keep Big D. I really think that that's a mistake because if Kyland or Xavier, whichever one of them wins, or sorry, whichever one of them is not on the block, if they win the power of veto and save the other one, then Azah's going to go up by default, and they're just going to vote her out, and they'll get exactly what they wanted. So I think it's a mistake to not just put both of them up, because then Big D is the one out of that trio that could win the power veto and force Azah to go up. But how likely is Big D to win the veto compared to Xavier and Kyland? You know what I mean? But anyway, she's thinking that she would put up Kyland and Big D to start and then see what happens with the power veto, and maybe Xavier would become the target. Okay. In other news, Tiffany pitched to Xavier again last night, and he eventually told her that he is leaning towards keeping Hannah. And she was kind of annoyed that she's got to waste another day in the house when this already seems to be decided that she's going to be leaving. But does she have to spend another day in the house? The feeds went down this morning, like right after the house guest woke up, and there was a really long audio leak on the live feeds today. Usually when the feeds go to the animals for like a long outage, we'll hear like do 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 do, or maybe every once in a while we'll be treated to like, so turn it up. But today we heard for a long time the popular music that they were playing for the house guests as they were locked down in the HOH room. We heard the house guests chilling out in there, singing along to the music, whatever. I'm sure a bunch of them were napping. And we also heard the tech rehearsal for the power veto competition for the upcoming double eviction. So we know that tomorrow's competition for the POV will be What the Bleep. And this was not the actual double eviction. I'm pretty sure they're filming that today. It's not going to be live tomorrow. But this was just the rehearsal for that. And they weren't even playing with the actual clips yet. They were playing clips from old seasons. Julie was not even there. They had somebody else standing in for her and for all the house guests. So did they really not realize that they were leaking all that audio? It was freaking insane. But anyway, Big Brother tweeted a little while later that the feeds are going to be staying down until after tomorrow night's episode airs on the West Coast. So that's going to be like 1 a.m. Eastern time. The double eviction will be over. And yeah, it sounds like we've seen the last of Tiffany on the feeds. That's so sad because she's most likely going to be the one leaving first in the double, and then we'll see what happens after that. I don't know. A lot is going to depend on that HOH competition.
Oh, only 2 steps.
Oh, yeah. All right. So I want to thank today's super chatters because you guys are awesome. Okay. And we've got Alexandra Alberts. Is that, yeah, that's a Z, right?
Yes.
And Alexandra says, the last stretch for you with the lives. I know, right? We're really getting down to it. It's wild. Thank you so much for the super chat. John S., thank you so much for the super chat. Vajra, thank you so much for the super chat. And he says, as groundbreaking as this season was in some regards, it's kind of sad and disappointing to see that the boys' only mentality stays the same. I know. I mean, I feel like we made a lot of progress this season with the cookout, making it to the final 6 and having the more diverse casting. But to see this season play out in these last few weeks the way it is, with the women just being picked off, is like such a bummer. So hopefully next season that will be fixed as well. We'll see. But anyway, I want to thank you all so much for being here. And also there will not be a spoiler video tomorrow because there's no live feeds to update. But we will be back. Of course, we're going to be covering the episode tonight, the episode tomorrow, and then the next spoiler will be on Friday. And then I think there's an episode on Friday as well. So yeah. Anyway, thank you all for being here. And until next time, much love. Bye.